I Saw the Devil is a 2010 release psychological horror thriller film that delves into the cycle of vengeance and the moral decay of the avenger. The film begins on a very dark and very snowy road where we see the character of Joo Hyun, that is Soo Hyun's fiance. Soo Hyun right here is the secret detective here and is the protagonist in this film, male protagonist. And she's waiting in the car after a breakdown because something, I think, puncture has been done. Puncture is spotted in the car. That's why. Broken tire case. So that's why she's waiting for it, and she calls her fiance, that is Soo Hyun, who reassures her that his help is on the way and he's just trying his best to do the things to help her. But suddenly, out of nowhere, we see on that empty road, because there is no sign of it, actually any car, only her car is there, and we see a mysterious yellow colored kind of a taxi just arrives there. Maybe we would call appropriately it as a van, and that is driven by Jang Chul, who just offers help. So right here, this man is the actual killer. So we will just get to know more about him in the later scenes of the movie. And when she refuses, now Jang Chul just attacks, smashing her window, and he's just trying to brutally terrorize her. He drags her out, beats her unconscious, and drives away. And he's just taking her body away from that place. And we can see that uh, he's just pulling her lifeless body along that road. And we see inside Jang Chul's secret hideout, that is Jo Yeon's awakens bound, and she's really terrified by this scene, really terrified by this experience, that what has happened with her. And now Jang Chul just taunts her, just beats her, and then mutilates her body with a machete, and ignoring her cries for mercy, that whatever she begs for. And later he dismembers her corpse and dumps that into a river. And our main protagonist, Hu Yeon, is unaware of all these things. The next day, we see that fishermen discover Joo Yeon's severed head, that is a beheaded, and that scene is just brutally terrorizing to see something kind of a dead body in front of you. That is not unexpected. I mean, in an unexpected way, it just comes out. So it's a very horrifying for the fisherman as well. And we see that now the things just turn out to be larger, because a retired police chief, that is just investigating the case, and a lot of media and a lot of people just gather around that place, because we see that it has become a kind of a national news and sensationalized that some kind of a murder or some kind of a death has happened there. And this is so just terrified to even see that, and all the people are just talking and gossiping about the things, that what has actually happened to that girl. And Soo Hyun now arrives at the forensic lab, where he sees her decapitated head in a plastic bag, and he's just gruesomely now angry that whatever or whoever the person has done this thing to his wife, now he will not let him free. And overcome with the grief and rage, he just vows to find the killer and make him somewhere at all cost. He's just trying his best to do the things. So now he just tries to take the investigation further, because he's also a secret service agent. So he knows all the detail relating to all the criminals of the country and all that kind of things. So we see that Soo Hyun requests time off from his job as an NIS agent to hunt down the murderer. So just he's now on his way to get vengeance, because his fiancée is dead now, and just take revenge because these things have happened with her, that is so unfortunate. And with the help of Joo Yeon's father, he identifies 4 main suspects, and all past are kind of a sex offenders. We see that, so they are involved in this kind of things, and he begins his hunt by tracking them down one by one. And so later he finds the first suspect, that is a sex offender, at his home. And so this is actually very funny as well, because the sex offender, he was just having his own time. I mean, he was masturbating in that room while watching porn, and at the sudden time we see that our male protagonist Soo Hyun arrives, and after his thing is just over, he beats him very savagely and demanding a confession about what he has done, or is he related to his fiancée death or not. So he just trying to find the link between both of them. When the suspect pleads innocence, so Soo Hyun just leaves and continues searching, and he comes to know that he is not involved in this kind of thing, so he leaves him. Then Soo Hyun targets a former school bus driver with a history of assaulting children, and after breaking into the house, he interrogates him very violently but finds no connection to Joo-yeon's murder. So this is the second suspect that he's trying to investigate. But moreover, he was not able to find out enough evidence, so he was not actually confident. So second suspect was also not much of worth for him because he was not able to find out them. And later Soo-hyun just discovers Jang Chul's hidden home and he just tries to break in and he finds the bloody tools, personal trophies from victims and the horrifying evidence that were just enough to say that he is the culprit. And a photograph of Joo-yeon just confirmed that Jang Chul is the killer. And now we see that Jang Chul just abducts another woman and she is on her way, that so-called alone way, because it's just empty, there is no car. And by the sake of just helping her out, and he just gets her. And just as he raises his weapon, Soo-hyun appears and ambushes him, and they engage in a very much brutal fight. We see that the Soo-hyun just dominating the killer left, right, and center, just trying to attack him. And you can see the scene is really great because even the cinematography for this particular scene just hits hard. They engage in a very brutal fight with Soo-hyun being dominant over the killer. Instead of killing him, actually Soo-hyun just forces feed him as a GS tracker pill, and this GPS tracker pill actually leaves him just kind of navigation and leaves him beaten. And now Jang Chul just stumbles into a very small clinic seeking the medical attention right here needed, and the kind doctor and nurse just try to treat him unaware of who he is or what profession he do. So they are just unaware about his background and they just offers to help because that is what they do because they are the doctors. Before Jang Chul can escape, Soo-hyun arrives again and now this time he actually attacks him again. He beats him senseless and just slashes his wrist and all the other body parts that he can, and just severs his Achilles tendon, and after that ensures that he cannot escape easily, and that just leaves the road for him very difficult because many of the body parts and other things relating to his body are not, because they are damaged by Soo-hyun, and he's just bleeding and he's just needing the help, and rage in his eyes speak for him that he will take revenge on Soo-hyun. Once again Soo-hyun lets him live, prolonging his suffering. Now Jang Chul just understood that Soo-hyun is not trying to kill him, he is just playing a sick game and he is just trying to make the killer more pain and just trying to terrorize him many more time as he can. Furious, he vows revenge and visit an old friend, which is a fellow serial killer and cannibal at the same time. So you see the common people just share their attribute, like the killer meets killer or killer meets cannibal, something like that. So here we can see the same. And Soo-hyun just track Jang Chul to a mansion where his psychopathic friend lives, and inside the cannibal and his girlfriend prepare to feast on a very bound victim. So we see that this is totally weirdo family. And Soo-hyun just storms him, slaughtering both killers in a very gory fight scene. He captures Jang Chul again and torturing him even more brutally at this time, and just trying to get the things done even beautifully than the before. Realizing that he cannot win this time, now Jang Chul just turns the table by attacking Soo-hyun's family now, because this is turned personal for him now. Because he murders Joo-yeon's father and takes Soo-hyun's sister-in-law as a hostage, and he calls Soo-hyun, mocking him for being too focused on revenge to protect his loved ones. Now this is the dilemma that actually most of the serial killers or most of the what we can say the enemy can do, that they are just kidnapping or they are just taking hostage of your family member to just kind of threaten you, to just kind of make just weaken you so that they can be stronger and dominant at the same time, and you can lose in front of them and he can just win over you. So this is the same tactic that Jang Chul the killer is using right here. We see that Jang Chul just surrenders to the police thinking he is in final safe, and now Soo-hyun just infiltrates the station, kidnaps Jang Chul and takes him into a very abandoned warehouse. And in that abandoned warehouse, we see that he beats him nearly to death, preparing for the final act of the vengeance. Now Soo-hyun just rigs a guillotine device in the Jang Chul's family house, and that device is actually very very brutal, and the placement of that is even more brutal than we expect because the pain and all the things are really really horrifying. And most of the scenes in movie are just so deeply rooted, gruesome and gory, especially the scene in the taxi where we see that the killer just kills all of them. And I think that was one take shot, and in the one take shot it is very beautifully shown. And I think the camera work, even the surround movement, and even the killing of the killer, the kills were, I think, meticulously ridiculous, and they were just great. You can just feel the rawness and the pain on in the eyes of the character that you are watching, and you just feel for them. And I think that scene just connected with me very brilliantly, especially the taxi scene where he takes the lift with the strangers and he just uh, kills them with a bare knife. I think that scene was just brilliant. Now back to the climax, we see that he ensuring that, I think, when the door opens, his family just unknowingly beheads him because the rope is placed in his mouth. So that placement just led to his death. And Chang Chul for the first time just begs for his life, realizing that it is his fate. And as Soo Hyun walks away, he hears the glittering blade fall, killing Chang Chul. And however, instead of feeling victorious, he collapses and sobbing uncontrollably. And the film ends with Soo Hyun just walking down the road, haunted and broken, and just thinking about all these incidents, that what has happened. I think there were many themes and symbolism in the movie. First of all, I think the corrupting nature of revenge, because revenge is such a badass thing. And Soo Hyun just becomes as cruel as the monster he hunts, because he was hunting the killer himself. So he need to be a very strong-minded person, and his quest for vengeance actually leaves him empty rather than fulfilled. And we see violence does not bring any kind of closure; it only leads to more suffering, because there is no end to violence. And innocent people, including Ju Hyun's father, became just collateral damage at that point. So Hyun's final breakdown actually symbolizes the revenge cost him his own soul actually. And we see it's unlike any typical revenge film. I think I Saw the Devil just represents revenge as a curse rather than a resolution. I think it's not a story of justice but a descent into the darkness, proving that sometime in hunting monster we become the monster themselves, and we even not realize that we have become. And the film was, I think, brilliantly written and executed as well. Some of the dialogues, and I actually watched the film with subtitles, so I think the subtitle even were good and just justifying the scene that were playing in front of you. And the film was, I think, brilliant, and it's a adult, I think, A-rated film, because most of the scenes showing the violence, there are actually, I think, 4 to 5 scenes showing the violence or the gore at its peak, and it was brilliant. I mean, the movie was, I think, even more successful, and it is one of the movies that is directed by the director of Parasite, which is Oscar winner in 2019 for foreign film category. So we can see that that man is just, I think, brilliant at its own work, because he had just proved that even the I Saw the Devil, this movie, and again I think the murder of Memoir of Murder, I think 2003 movie, and then with 2006 the whole. I think he has brilliant filmography in his wallet, so that justifies him as a very brilliant and great director, I think. And I think one of the film's most compelling aspects is the moral ambiguity between the protagonist Kim Soo Hyun and the antagonist Jang Chul. Because at first we see the line between the good and evil seem clear, as usual, and Jang Chul is a sadistic killer who just takes pleasure in suffering of his victim, and Soo Hyun is an NIS agent, a secret agent, a man of the law, and a hero who should actually always deliver justice and stand for what is right and what is wrong. However, as the story progresses, the distinction just blurs as the time goes on in the movie. We see that Soo Hyun's action just haunting, torturing, and releasing Jang Chul's push him into a very moral corruption where he cannot even recognize himself that he has become one of the monster among themselves. We see that Jang Chul as the traditional monster because he kills without remorse, just treating murder as a fake game and very gruesome. He's just killing the people like they are not even people, they are non-living objects, and not a one sense of guiltiness on his face can be seen. He enjoys watching the others suffer, and his complete lack of empathy just makes him inhuman. And instead of delivering justice, he just chooses the cruelty, mirroring Chang Chul's behavior. And he ignores the cost of his revenge, actually leading to the deaths of innocent people. And by the end, he becomes emotionally unrecognizable, proving that revenge had just stripped him of his humanity. And this is what just that is about his thing, and he's lost it actually. By the time Soo Hyun walks away crying, the film has effectively just flipped its moral compass, and the audience is left questioning whether the revenge was worth the cost or not. And it is actually thing that we should think about the movie actually. We see from the psychological perspective, The film is not just revenge but about how grief and anger just transform a person completely. We see that Soo Hyun starts as a very disciplined agent, a very compelling human being or the person that just believes in law and order so much because he is a part of the system. But his descent into obsession and cruelty is a very slow and deliberate process. We see that he is emotionally shattered after Joo Hyun's, that is his fiance's murder, and his initial motivation is justice, not cruelty. But once he finds Jang Chul, he starts his cat and mouse game. He's very strategic, using the skills to dominate the killer, and his punishment just became increasingly brutal as he begins to just enjoy the suffering he inflicts, and he ignores the warning of the loved ones. And even after achieving his revenge, he feels empty. He realizes that nothing he has done has brought Joo Yeon back. And the final shot of the Soo Yeon crying uncontrollably is not relief, but it is actually a despair because he has lost everything, including his soul too. Because journey just shatters the emotional, what we call that emotions of the person, that he is not able to hold him back. He's lost his fiancée, he's lost his family. Actually, he's lost his soul himself, and everything is not working well. But at last, the justice has been done, not in a way that we were supposed to be, but in a way that is meant to be done. That is the death of the killer. You see that Kim Jee-woon just masterfully uses the cinematography, lighting, and framing to reinforce the film's theme. And very cold and muted color actually reflect the film scream's atmosphere. And scenes are often, I think, dimly lit, emphasizing the darkness in both the character and overall the feel of the movie. And I think camera work was just good enough too. And when Chang Chul is the predator, the camera often follows him with very slow, steady, and gradual movements. We see that, so kind of giving build up to the character. We see that Soo Hyun is hunting him, and the camera is more erratic, reflecting the intensity of the emotions of the character that we can see on even face of them. And one of the main aspect of the movie that stick along me was the violence. I think it was brutal, gruesome, and it was meaningful to depict the work done by the killer themselves because it justifies the character. Because the violence in the I Saw the Devil movie, 2010, I think it's very graphically horrific and prolonged, but it is not kind of shock value because we expect from the killer to do this kind of things. And he's a psychopathic killer, so minded. Every fight, every injury serves as a very narrative purpose to show the deterioration of Soo Hyun's morality, I think. And the film's final shot, that is Soo Hyun crying while walking away, is left open-ended, and it does not glorify revenge. Instead, it just forces the audience to ask, was it worth it or not? And I think revenge is a very common theme in South Korean cinema, but I think this movie that I Saw the Devil takes a very different approach for this thing. And unlike traditional revenge thriller, where the hero gains as satisfaction, the film just shows revenge as a kind of very self-destruction. And at its core, I think the movie just asks a very haunting question: that is revenge ever truly satisfying? And by the end, we see that answer is clear: no. And Kim Joo-woon does not give us heroic conclusion. Instead, he leaves us with a man who has lost everything: his love, his soul, and his purpose. And I Saw the Devil is not just about revenge; it's about the destruction of the human soul. It presents a moral paradox: how far can you go before becoming what you hate? And the final scene is one of the most powerful ending in revenge cinema, I think. It's a open kind of ending, so leaving viewers to interpret according to them what they think and their perspectives. So leaving the audience, I think, with guilt and sorrow rather than the satisfaction. And I think in the end, it is not only a story of justice, but it's the story of grief, obsession, and the terrifying truth that revenge only breeds more pain, and that nothing is brutal than revenge actually, because it always results in a loss, and there is no meaningful for that. So the movie just depicts brutal. Even in the last of the scene, we see that he just completely lost it. We can even see on his face he's crying in the ending scene. So this is all about this movie. Thank you for watching and subscribe for more.